Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining podcast. And today's guest is Alastair Clayton. He's the Executive Director at Artemis Resources, who are a gold and copper focused resources company with major assets in the Pilbara, which is in Western Australia, at their Paterson Central and Carlow Castle operations or mines, I say. Alastair has a considerable amount of experience with raising capital for ASX and AIM-listed companies, as well as extensive experience in evaluating and financing large-scale projects. So he's on the podcast today to tell us a little bit more behind Artemis Resources and what they're looking to achieve in the future. So let's welcome Alastair to the podcast. How you doing, Alastair?
Yeah, g'day, Rob. Yeah, really well. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time. Even though with an Australian accent, you're based here in the UK.
Sure.
So
Sure.
you're we're not too far away from each other. So just wanted to give us a little bit of background about your career. So obviously before how you got into the industry, sort of up to current day.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, thanks again, mate. Yeah, I mean, look, didn't want to be a desk jockey, so I became a geologist instead. I suppose that's the short answer. Growing up in Western Australia, it was a not uncommon career path, given the sort of prevalence and the strength of the mining industry. Worked out in the bush for many, many years. Then been very lucky with the people I've worked with. Worked for a couple of very well-known entrepreneurs, Tony Polly, who set up Aquila Group and sold that for a couple of billion, and then eponymous Andrew John Henry Forrest, who's obviously founder and largest shareholder of Fortescue Metals Group, the biggest iron ore miner in the world. Came to this fair country 20 odd years ago, having been involved in the construction and finance and construction of the Murrin nickel cobalt plant, which is still the biggest nickel plant in the world, owned by in Australia, still owned by Glencore, massive producer. And then worked in various jobs in the city, and then couldn't get away from mining and sort of got back involved in projects, mainly in Africa. Some of your listeners might be familiar with in the past. I had a uranium company called Bannerman, which was quite a large company, still going, based in Namibia. And then I was a director of a company called Extract, which is an ASX 100 company, representing the main shareholder, who many of your listeners will know, Kalahari Minerals. And we sold that business in 2012 for a couple of $1 billion. I think we were the second or third largest AIM exit ever. And since then, been involved. I'm an explorationist by heart. I believe that's where core value is created. And been involved in a couple of companies, a coal company, Universal Coal PLC. We came from cornfields to dividend payer, taken over a few years ago, producing 10 million tonne of coal per annum. We took that through the cycle. And then, like everyone, mate, just really interested in gold copper deposits. You've got a map behind your head. The number of countries where I was willing to invest my money is rapidly shrinking, and probably still to this day is shrinking, to sensible jurisdictions. And then that led on to Artemis and how I got involved in terms of taking it over, recapitalising it, and doing a full turnaround to where we are today. So yeah, that's the basic CV.
Yeah, so just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about Artemis Resources. Obviously, some of our audience may have heard of them, especially our Australian listeners and maybe UK listeners, but our North American friends and people in Africa and all around the rest of the world may have not heard about Artemis. So I just wondered if you can give us a brief introduction about the company and talk through your core assets.
Yeah, sure. Look, Artemis probably most famous, along with Novo Resources. A gold nugget story. 5-6 years ago. The company had quite a large market cap in the sort of gold squeeze that sort of eroded away, and to the point that when I was approached by a bunch of investors to put some money in, Arlington Group out of Mayfair, we put some money into the company. We liked the assets, and then eventually we put some more money in, and we decided that we actually wanted to sort of install management, as it were. Subsequent to that, we basically picked up a really undervalued company that had, quite a cacophony of projects, a couple of gems within them. you can't progress 10 projects at one time, let alone as a major, let alone as a small company. So over the last 2 years, be it through cash sales, share sales, joint ventures, IPOs, we've managed to strip the portfolio back, raised a hell of a lot of money doing it, saved a hell of a lot of money doing it, and really just focus on our 2 core projects. Along the way, we've brought in new management. We actually announced a new director this morning, Vivian Power, who's part of the CEO Parenti Investments in Australia. She's also a metallurgist and has joined the team. As far as the directors go, we've brought in the right people. We've got Mark Potter, CIO of Metal Tiger Group, who many of your listeners might know out of here in London. And we've just brought the right people in for the right time. We've got quite a large board at the moment. We'll probably streamline that in time. But at the moment, we've got the right team to take the assets forward. So what are we focusing on? We are focusing on the Carlow Castle gold project, gold copper project, and some, as you'll see soon, almost also a copper gold project, if that makes any sense. And we're also focusing on the Paterson Central project, which will be very thematic to, geez, I would have thought 99% of your listeners as we've followed the Great and Gold story. But it really has been a turnaround. Look, we've got a few noses out of joint as we've done it. Some people still complaining about things that happened 6 years, 7, 10 years ago. Look, I'm afraid they just deal with it, move on. Basically, we've got the company right where we want it. Like many companies, as we were speaking off camera this morning, including Facebook and virtually every listed company in the world, we've been absolutely battered lately. But I'll go into some depth in a minute about our key projects and what to look out for.
Yeah. Why have you sort of, I suppose, specifically focused around the Pilbara area? And how do you see the area developing as a mining jurisdiction? Obviously, it's a well known throughout the world as a obviously, I suppose, iron ore district. But obviously, it seems to me there is nuggets of gold around.
Sure.
So yeah.
It's an interesting one, mate. And look, if you told me 3, 4, 5 years ago that I'd be, heading up a company with the team exploring for gold and copper in the Pilbara, to be frank, I probably would have laughed at you, because every West Australian geologist with their salt gold geologist worked around the Kalgoorlie and the Southern Goldfields, and the Pilbara was just for iron ore and liquefied natural gas, and you'd never go there. Look. Quite simply, it's the old story. When the facts change, our opinions change, and there's been clues to great gold discoveries. Oh gosh, for 100 years in that part of the world, but it was never quote unquote taken seriously. What's changed? Well, discoveries change everyone's perception. I don't know. I point to the 2 obvious ones. Firstly, Hemi de Grey. I know some of the team there. What a great 10 million ounce discovery just south of Port Hedland, about 120 k's to the northeast of us. Who would have thought it? 10 million ounces and growing, probably going bigger. And that is a world-class discovery in anyone's books. So that changed everyone's opinion. And then, of course, the great Havieron discovery, which some of your listeners will probably know, quite a big advocate of in terms of our investment company and looking at that early on. And look, to be frank, it was really the story that helped me get involved in Artemis, and certainly is a huge part of the upside in our story. But yeah, totally. Who would have thought it? Gold copper province in the Pilbara. That's why geology always makes a fool of you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I just wondering, you tell us a little bit about the Paterson story.
Sure. Look, absolutely. Look, and again, just to sort of clarify for those that haven't been through our presentation, we've got 2 core projects, I suppose. 3 really. We've got the West Pilbara, which is literally 20 kilometres south of Karratha, which is the big mining and gas hub in the Pilbara region, and that's a gold copper project. We also own the Radio Hill plant there that some people may have forgotten or don't know, and we'll be talking about more. That's the market soon. And then, of course, we've got the Paterson, which is about, 500-600 k's away. And we basically surround the Great and got through good luck and good management. we surround the we surround the Havieron discovery on three sides. The Havieron deposit, as we all know, is probably one of the great gold discoveries of the last 20 years, certainly in Australia, easily. Could be the greatest discovery of the last 20 years. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. A little AIM explorer called Greatland Gold was toiling away out there, Callum and Gervais and the team, and just the dream of all explorers. They discovered one of a massive gold copper system, probably some other metals down there as well, we're led to believe. And the rest is history. That's now sort of under construction. There's a decline going down. I can't remember what the last resource was. It was 8 or 10 million ounces, but I've been on record since 2018 saying it'll be 20+ million ounces. I'm more than happy to stand by that number, maybe even more. So, a real unique opportunity, oft over the word, unique, but, as I say to our investors, when would you ever get a chance to drill next to a virgin 20 million ounce type discovery in Western Australia? And the answer is never. Well, certainly not since about 1890. So it's a pretty unique opportunity, and through exploration, we want to capitalize.
You recently announced drilling at the Osborne nickel target was underway. Just wondered what the potential is there.
Yeah, sure. Look, Osborne's back over on the western side, the West Pilbara. We don't own 100% of the project. The company's joint venturing in, paying for that. That was one of our spin-outs. And again, it's all about reducing. And I think some critical shareholders of us divesting projects are probably eating their words now as the sort of tide goes out a bit on the market and everyone's looking at how much money you've got. Exactly. I've seen many cycles. Exactly why you don't have 10 projects. But Osborne, we will still own 49%. It's a very discrete nickel style target, a conductor. It's an aeromagnetic feature, or it's actually a VTEM feature. And it's never been drilled. Why has it never been drilled? Because previous companies that owned it couldn't get heritage clearance. Our team have managed to get heritage, that's local Aboriginal sign-off, heritage clearance to do it, and we've just started drilling there. So that is what I call a high alpha opportunity. The conductor is something, what it is, it could be a big lump of nickel, it could be a big lump of sulfidic shale, we don't know. And we're drilling it now to find out. And one thing I would say is sulfide nickel deposits in good markets or bad are always hugely value accretive. So yeah, that's a nice little exploration story within a story that's going on over in the West Pilbara.
Yeah, you just mentioned obviously heritage clearance, and previous companies were unable to do that. What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Oh, look, I mean, heritage is a big issue. As a sort of broad comment, we find Aboriginal communities, and there are multiple different communities that you engage with, are broadly supportive of the industry. It's a sort of maybe inner city Melbourne or Sydney view that Aboriginal communities are against mining and all this. It's just rubbish, because these people live up there and they work at these operations. So there's a general layer of support. But look, in terms of the West Pilbara, it was just our timing was good, and some good engagement on getting access to that project. Okay. Other projects, say for example the Patersons, heritage it's a really involved process, and it's not a process that begins or ends. It's a continual dialogue and negotiation, and working with all sorts of people to make sure that the right outcomes. But look, heritage is a process, and it's an ever evolving process for us. We've got specialist people that work full time for us to manage this, and that's fine. We largely have the heritage approvals we want across the board of our projects. But yeah, with discovery and hopeful development, that process just continues. It has no natural ending. It's a constant stakeholder engagement process. Yeah.
What other projects in the portfolio are you most excited about?
Well, look, to be honest, we had sort of 10 distinct projects. We've now got 2. It's definitely those 2. So just to sort of give you a sort of 10,000 foot, snapshot, and obviously our website and various presentations and upcoming news flow, you'll be able to follow it a lot more closely. Look, we've got we've got 3 key strengths to the company, right? Well, more. First of all, we've got money. Okay. So what you're going to see now, the tide's gone out a bit. Everyone's share price has been hammered. Like I said, it's not just ours. It's not just the mining industry. When Facebook's off 60%, it is what it is. we don't have to undertake life-changing dilution at these rubbish levels. Okay, we've got a really good cash runway to keep spending on our exploration. We watch the pennies as we always do, but we've got good cash runway. Our projects are in the right jurisdictions, I've said. Tick box. There's enough risk out there with what we do. I don't want to take sovereign risk. And lastly, obviously, it's the projects themselves. Carlow Castle with the Radio Hill plant nearby. Carlow Castle is a gold, copper, and someplace copper gold resource that we're drilling. We're working on a new resource update now. What we're looking to do, if this makes any bizarre sense, Rob, is we're looking to shrink it to grow it. We want to make it a high quality, higher grade project. Okay, and what do I mean by that? We've got an aspiration for a combined gold sort of copper grade of somewhere around 2 grams or something like that from an open pit perspective. That puts you in, that puts you in a good sort of quartile of potential cost production. Yeah, we don't have 1 million ounces yet, but we're working towards it, and we feel our only limitation on that is drilling. You'll see, we've got our new crosscut deposits, we've got our Western Zone deposits, got a really interesting, slightly different project emerging to the south called Chapman. And I know I promised this on a few of these lately, but we're getting assays and everything is so slow at the moment. But we'll be in news again soon, and people start to see the fruits of that labour. So that creates a base valuation for us, right? Okay. So we want to put ounces in the ground at a really good grade in a really good jurisdiction with all the exploration upside. Well, what's that worth? Well, there's all sorts of metrics, and smarter people than me could say that. We own the Radio Hill plant. We've got that on the balance sheet. It was a nickel plant. We've got that on the balance sheet at about $20 million. I think it's worth a lot more than that. It is not ready to start producing gold or nickel or anything, but I've just had some engineering work overview done on it. The crush grind circuit looks really good. The flotation circuit, which is how you would extract copper especially, is probably a bit old and needs to be replaced. But there are more than the bones of a regional plant there. Importantly, it has a lot, but not all of the permits to operate. So there's a huge time runway. And obviously in this ever-rising CapEx environment, having a lot of that capital already deployed in a plant, yes, it's going to need money to spend to change it, upgrade it, finish it, etc. That's just a huge bonus for us. And then, of course, again, what probably 99% of your listeners here in the UK are really excited about is the Paterson, and until we make a discovery, we'll find. But, I'd point out to people, we own 100% of our project. We are the only junior in the area that has retained 100% of all their ground. Okay, so we've retained all of our ground under 100% banner. Why is that? It's because we've got a great discovery next door, and if we can make a discovery, then we can leverage off that position. In terms of time frame, watch this space. Again, making an absolute mug out of myself. Talking about time frames over the last 3 to 6 months has been a fool's errand, because I think everyone knows how tight it is. I mean, it's, as we were saying off camera, trying to fly around the world, trying to buy a new car. I mean, supply chains are stretched horrendously around the world, and no more so than in the mining industry. But look, I'm pleased to, we will be off and running in the Patersons again, and I know I've said that recently, but we genuinely will be, and we will be talking to shareholders about that. And then, what's it worth? We've got a market cap of $50 million, $45 million. We've got 10 or 11 in liquidity. We've got a plant worth 20. What is the market saying? Both of our projects are worth 0, because that's kind of what they're saying at the moment. So, that's the sales pitch, Rob. When you've been, and the last thing I point out from our share price, 99.99% of our shareholders have not sold a share in the last 3 months. Okay, unfortunately, shares, in falling markets on tiny liquidity and thin markets, you get beaten up. It's embarrassing, mate, where our share price is, but the reason I'm confident, and I've been buying shares, I'm obviously inside now, unfortunately, is simply that reason. We've finally got the company where we want it. Market has a wobble, so be it. We're just getting on with the work.
Yeah, but I mean, if shares go down, that's even more reason to buy them. Sure.
Look, in terms of sort of the space, I mean, gosh, you're seeing it everywhere. You see, I'm not an eternal gold bull. I never have been. But my God, $1,800 an ounce. I mean, the Aussie dollar gold price is, I mean, what's wrong with that? Phenomenal. I remember the last gold bust, it was $280 an ounce. you know, the gold price is great. The copper price, I know it's been smashed the last couple of weeks on LME, you know, puts and calls and all sorts of things. I can tell you that there are smart guys and gals in the city in London who can work out the demand side. You know, they work out how many pots and pans the average Chinese person's going to buy and all this, blah, 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 you know, and Teslas, etc. Fine, I'm sure they're really accurate, and they're completely wrong on the supply side, okay? Mines are not getting built. We work in the non-renewable sector. Mines in South America, the United States, the big developments there have been held up under the Biden administration, etc., etc. The supply side is looking shocking. So if you can have some near-term production, you are already seeing end users going down into the supply chain, down into levels they've never been before. And I don't mean the Glencores of this world, I mean industrial users. Best example, obviously, is in the lithium space. We're seeing the car manufacturers directly do deals with companies. Well, I can tell you that we're starting to see those kind of interests coming down to our space because people need material or nothing happens. So, yeah, I mean, it's always darkest before the dawn, but, you know, it's hard not to be bullish on metals prices. And the great thing about being in the exploration game is we don't have a CapEx event coming up, okay? We can build our balance sheet back up when the sun's shining again next week, next month, next year. So yeah, it's it might not look it, but it's good times to be part of the Artemis team.
Yeah, and obviously speaking about gold and copper, how do you see both gold and copper performing over the sort of coming years? And I suppose I'm not going to ask about price predictions either, but
sure,
how would you see it?
Look, mate, yeah, look, on the gold side, look, it's, as I said, I'm not one of these sort of permanent gold bulls who's been calling it for the last 20 years, but geez, it's hard to make a bear case for gold at the moment, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing the effects of rampant monetary printing and M2 money expansionism, and well, guess what? We're all paying the price for it now. These lunatics that said governments could expand balance sheets indefinitely. Well, unfortunately, it's you and I who are paying the price, right? That's all we're seeing is excess liquidity coming out. So how can you be bearish for gold? But all I'll say is if you could tell us that gold price is going to just be where it is in the next 3 years, you've got to be more than happy with that. It's fantastic how it is. It goes up a bit, brilliant. On the copper side, as I alluded to, I follow the copper and nickel markets really closely. Again, supply side crunch. Mines are not being built. There is no supply. You know, supply is not coming on as modelled. How can you not be bullish? And as I said, I think the most interesting dynamic that is playing out now that I haven't really seen before is not just supply; it's the security of supply. So users saying, "That's great, you can deliver X thousand tons in year Y, but where are you again? Am I really going to get this material? Because guess what? I'm not going to get it through a trading hub in China because, you know, all those existential risks come home to roost. So, you know, it's hard not to be bullish the commodity space in general, mate. And that is not always my view, but it is my view now for sure.
Yeah. How do you see the gold mining industry within the Pilbara? Obviously, you mentioned not long ago, you wouldn't have even thought about doing any gold exploration in the Pilbara. How do you see it developing over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, sure. Look, in short, I think it's one of the, you know, it's got some real advantages to that, in terms of, and what do I mean by that? Proximity to towns and the habitation and power, water, infrastructure. I mean, the great thing about being crisscrossed with you know, dotted with iron ore mines is there's high voltage power lines. I'll give you an example. Carlow Castle, and I've said this before, you can get off a Qantas 737 and be standing on the project 20 minutes later. Okay, you do not even need a four-wheel drive vehicle to get there. Now, all these things feed in, and I know with Hemi and its proximity to, you know, to headland and other infrastructure, the geology is wide open. And again, you know, sometimes it's just groupthink that makes people think there weren't gold deposits, so there weren't. Well, now there are, and there is. So, you know, our model is very simple with our projects at the moment. You won't see talk of, you know, PFSs and feasibility studies and all that. We're just in the exciting bit, the resource discovery and growth model. Right? We're trying to make a hate the word premium product's the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean. We're trying to shrink tons, but to raise grade. We want to be a higher grade operation, because I think as us and other discoveries are made in the area, that's going to be key. Okay. You've obviously, look, Hemi's a way away from us, but that shows what's possible. We've got plenty of land, and there's some other great explorers working around near us as well. There's been a fabulous nickel discovery. I mean, gosh, kilometres from us or less, just across the tenement boundary, and it shows what's possible, mate. So, yep, it's about trying to create a higher grade resource and reserve. Make it as big as you can. I know this is all pretty obvious stuff, but you know, if we could build the resource we want at, say, somewhere like Carlow Castle, I'll give you things we don't need to build that you often do. We don't need to build an airport. We don't need to build an accommodation town. We don't need to build a water pipeline. We don't need to build a power pipeline. We don't need to build roads. You know, all of these things feed in to what is attractive as a developer going forward, especially in inflationary times. So, yep, couldn't think of anywhere better. I recently took some London people out to site, and we described it as the world's best field trip. It's that easy to get to.
And as a conclusion, what can we see from Artemis over the remainder of this year going into 2023?
Yeah, funny. We actually had a board meeting this morning, and we were just talking about that. And look, the feedback for us is, look, we're lucky we got money. Now, one should never assume that the raising the next bit of money is ever going to be easy, because historically it's not. Now, the last couple of years it has been easier, and I think we've seen larger capital raises, but clearly investors are going to focus, once the dust settles over the next month or two, people are going to focus more on the quality side, and that's what we're trying to brand ourselves as, but we're going to be lucky to do that. We just need exploration success. That's life. What can you expect is basically an execution of the plan that we've actually been talking about for the last 6 to 12 months. Continued work at Carlow. Okay, we basically did another 10 holes just recently, tracking on from the 35 holes we did, and all the results of those are coming out very, very soon. And you see what that does and how that interplays, hopefully, with our new resource. So you're going to be seeing that kind of work. And then, of course, the Patersons, which is that high alpha drilling. I think we've got 9 or 10 holes in for the, confusingly, phase 1 has straddled years now because we ran into Christmas, etc. And we've had delays in getting our rig availability back out, but we've got that now. You're just going to see the execution of the phase 1 at the Patersons, which is going to involve, and have a look on the maps. Apologies if you use the discrete number, but more drilling at Apollo and Atlas. Then we're going to drill Juno and Voyager. These are all the sub targets, Rob, within our. You have a look at our website, you'll be able to see them annotated there. And all of them are, and then down to the south, Enterprise, east, Enterprise, west, etc. The funny thing is, I was chatting to someone the other day, and I said, "Oh, you've been exploring out in the Patersons for a couple of years, and you haven't made a discovery yet." I said, I get where you're coming from, because it looks like we've been drilling out there for a couple of years. Between COVID, heritage, waiting for heritage approvals, waiting for drill rigs to actually turn up when they say they're going to, and Christmas and weather and wet seasons, we've done about 12 weeks drilling. Okay, we have put holes into 3 sub-targets. We've only got 10 to go. I mean, we haven't, out in the Patersons, you can't just, and you can speak to the Greatland crew about this, you can't just pick up and move your chess piece to exactly where you want. There's logistics, there's heritage, there's geography, all sorts of boring reasons that shareholders don't really care about. But this is how we deal out in big grown-up desert. We haven't even started our exploration, really. We've just started. So it might seem like we've been wading through treacle out there. We have. I can fully admit we have. But, we're about to have our first ever proper run at it, because we're going to be drilling from July all the way up to December. And it's the first time I've had a proper run at a proper program. And I'm hopeful we'll get through 8 or 9 holes at least before Christmas. Any one of those, as Greatland shareholders, and I was a very large Greatland shareholder, thankfully, can attest, can change your life. So keep your appendages crossed is my advice, Rob.
Yeah. Alastair, appreciate your time. Give us an update and introduction to Artemis Resources, and obviously wish you well for the remainder of this year and ongoing. It sounds like a great project, a great story, and can't wait to hear the fantastic results that you will get eventually, because obviously, like you said, discovering gold in the Pilbara is a rarity, but it might not be a rarity soon. So wish you well in your success. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got questions or find out information, how can they go about doing that? Are you on any social media channels?
Mate, on Twitter, at Artemis Resource. Look us up there. I think in terms of sort of contacting us through our PR firm at Camarco, get in touch. More than happy to talk to anyone. We will be ramping up the sort of the presentational side in terms of doing some talks in London, etc. And I'm sure we can arrange something at a pub where we can get some interested shareholders along to talk about all things. So I'm sure people will attest. Very approachable. Happy to chat. You got some concerns, some questions? Just give us a hoy.
Yeah. Again, really appreciate your time, Alastair. Those that are listening, hope you enjoyed the episode, and please follow Artemis. There's a great story there, and like Alastair said, trying to discover gold in the Pilbara was probably non-existent not long ago, but it looks like there is obviously a lot of potential there. So please share this episode with friends, family, others, and all you guys listening in Australia. Please share this, and obviously around the world. Appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.